Well, for one thing, the 1913 flood has been largely forgotten, and it was part of a giant storm system, which was equivalent to Hurricane Katrina, only centered on the industrial north. And one of my overriding questions, which I haven't fully answered yet, is how does something that widespread get totally forgotten? Because the scope of this nationally was all the way from Nebraska to New England, and eventually all the flood crests, the record flood crests, rolled down the Mississippi River. And so parts of 15 states were devastated. And there are many different ways of calculating the monetary value of the property destruction, but it is equivalent, if in modern terms, of about $115 billion, which would be put it in the same class as Hurricane Katrina. Also, 1,000 people lost their lives. And from the point of view of where we are now, Akron-Canton, the heaviest rainfall was concentrated on the range of hills that go between Akron and Canton, well, and all the way across Ohio. That actually is a continental divide, which separates the waters that go north into Lake Erie from the waters that go south into the Ohio River and down the Mississippi, which meant that the flood was statewide because the waters went in both directions, and it flooded every river from its headwaters to its source in Ohio, and also the Wabash, because all those rivers have their sources in this continental divide.
More than 400 deaths, I read.
Actually, that was the preliminary number. Okay. If you go by the later Red Cross numbers, and also the Miami Conservancy District numbers, there were probably 350 deaths just in the Miami Valley. The later Red Cross numbers from fall of 1913, after all their records were in, was closer to 600 deaths.
Okay. What did it do to Akron and Canton? Obviously it was widespread, but what kind of impact with that heavy rain that you specified in this area, what did it do?
What it did to Akron in particular, I mean, why would a flood affect a city that's in mountains? But it was because of the canal, in part. You had all the locks. I think there's something like 45 locks between Cleveland and Akron, and many of them are concentrated in a 9-mile stretch to get over the hills. And what that meant was all that rainfall concentrated there not only backed up, we tend to think of locks as backing things up horizontally, but it was also vertically because of the changes in altitude. And so you had all these logs, all these uprooted trees, all kinds of things acting like dams that had vertical pressure on it as well as horizontal. And it spread out the water much wider, as a matter of fact, and water had tremendous current. So it was scouring out the stream beds, scouring out parts of the foundations of buildings in downtown Akron, and there was concern that it was actually just going to take out a lot of it. It flooded the Goodyear plant. It flooded the Beacon Journal. And they actually they ran printing presses, but powered by motorcycles. That's actually recounted on the front page of the Akron Beacon Journal at the time. And so they actually dynamited the locks in order to release the pressure, and that was the end of the canal.
You're speaking this Friday? Is one of your events that's
Yes, that
up?
is
Tell
correct.
Me where is that and what is that about?
I am speaking at the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. I believe it's called the Happy Days Visitor Center. It's part of the Lyceum Lecture Series. My talk will be on the 1913 flood, particularly, or highlighting, among other things, the role of Cleveland as first responder to Dayton, because Cleveland did get hit, but not as badly as some of the other cities. Cleveland at that time was bigger than it is today, and it got first rescue trains and supplies into the Dayton area, which was the hardest hit.
8 p.m.?
The talk itself is 8 p.m. There's a dinner that precedes it at 6.
Okay. Anything else that's local that's coming up that we should know about as it relates to the anniversary of the flood? Friday, Saturday, or Sunday? I see lots of stuff.
Yeah, there's lots of stuff around the state. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Yes, actually, I believe there's also a flood hike that is sponsored by one of the organizations. I think if you go online to the Cuyahoga Valley National Park, their spring program lists quite a number of events. This flood hike actually is going to be tracing along parts of the Ohio and Erie Canal, possibly including some of the locks that were dynamited. And I believe there are some other events too, but the Cuyahoga Valley National Park site program recounts a number of those things and gives dates and times.
Okay.